Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Thank you very much, Paul. Welcome everybody to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Josh Taylor in tonight for Rich Walsh. He is down in Charlotte with the Pitt football team. Right now, they are trailing Clemson in the third quarter, 28-10 in the ACC championship game. So that obviously is one of the topics of the day so far. Pitt lagging behind here against Clemson, had some opportunities in the first half, especially near the end of the first half, to maybe make an impact with a short field, but fell short. But right now, they are trailing. It looks like Clemson's starting to move down the field here with about 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Once again, Pitt trailing 28-10 against Clemson. Some other college football, we saw a couple of Power 5 conference championship games happen. Alabama comes back from 14 points down to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, 35-28. Really exciting game down in Atlanta. Plus, we saw in the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma beats Texas by 12. So now it starts to shift towards what happens with the college football playoff. As it looks like right now, Ohio State and Clemson both in control in their game. So if those two teams win, it starts to become a question of, assuming that Georgia is now out having 2 losses, I think that would be the safe assumption. Who gets the 4th spot? Is it Oklahoma? Is it Ohio State? I think that's what it comes down to as far as those spots are concerned. If Clemson holds, I think holding the 2 spot is not a question. I think Notre Dame being in there is not a question. I think those two along with Alabama are in, no questions asked. It comes down to who holds that 4th spot and who is more deserving. But I'll shift it over to Pitt a little bit too, because if that does happen, if Pitt does not come back and win this game, they will finish at 7-6 before going into the bowl season. And I'll ask this question: what are you now looking for next season out of Pitt? We saw a division championship this year. We saw them go to the conference championship game. If indeed this ends in a championship game loss, what are you looking at next season? Is a division championship just something on the list now? Does it become going from just winning the division to winning the conference championship? Is that the next tangible goal? Is that sensible? Is that possible, in your opinion, for this Pitt team, or do they still have a further ways to go? One of the things I want to talk about. Also, the Penguins lose tonight to the Flyers 4-2. Very disappointing game. I thought it was an effort that, as the game went on, seemed to get lesser and lesser as far as the results were concerned. I think some of the decision-making was just bad. Chris Letang, after the game, was very self-reflective. He says, we're making a lot of mistakes. We're letting guys get behind us. And he said, some of this is my fault. So he took a lot of the blame on himself. Casey DeSmith, I thought, didn't get as much help as he probably should have. And this is a game that started out well enough for the Penguins. Sidney Crosby scores almost 40 seconds into the game. Him and Jake Gensel on a 2-on-1 on a really nice goal up against a rookie goaltender who ended up beating them. Not to take away from him, because he did look pretty impressive in the third period, made a couple of huge saves to keep the Penguins off from tying this game. But I thought a lot of this game comes down to just what the Penguins themselves are doing. I think we're finding out more and more it's not the goaltending situation, because now you have Jarry and DeSmith that have to go out every night and deal with whatever's in front of them. So I don't think it's entirely Matt Murray anymore. I think you have to look at the 5 skaters in front of the goaltender at any given time. I think it's what we're looking at right now. Defensively, I'm going to keep coming back to this. I had a discussion with a good friend of mine, one of my colleagues, Angie Carducci from Inside Hockey Magazine. Shout out to Angie. We were talking about this after the game was over. I think there's a couple of things that we look at that we don't want to always pile them up and go back to that shelf when it's convenient. But one of the things that I think is missing with this team is Justin Schultz. Not having him, I think, makes a big impact. He's one of your more reliable scoring defensemen. He quarterbacks the power play. He's one of the most reliable defensemen as far as defense and not making many mistakes on the defensive end. When you lose that guy, who's one of your most consistent guys, that becomes a problem. So that leaves you with a guy like Brian Dumoulin as your next most consistent guy. And that's nothing against Brian Dumoulin, but losing a guy like Justin Schultz, who's expected to have so much of a role offensively and defensively and on your power play, it really does leave a hole. And I think that's one of the things that this team is missing. Other things I want to run down: Pitt volleyball, their season comes to an end against Michigan in the second round of the NCAA tournament. We also have high school football. Pine Richland season comes to an end in 6A. They lose in the 6A semifinals. Aliquippa wins in the 3A semifinals. Congratulations to the Quips. They're going to the state championship game. Shout out to Mike Warfield and his staff. Duquesne, their season ends in the FCS playoffs. Slippery Rock season ends in the Division II playoffs. So congratulations to those 2 schools for, 1, making your playoff, and 2, at least getting a round in. That's a really big accomplishment for those 2 schools. So congratulations to Slippery Rock and Duquesne. Did I leave anything out? Call me and yell at me. 412-575-2600 on the Borders and Borders hotline. Tweet me at Josh Taylor HD. We'll talk about college football. Let's talk about the playoff. Who's your 4? Who's in for you? Who gets in the playoff for you? What do you think about Pitt's season, and what's a tangible goal, or what's the goal you're looking at for next season? I want to talk about that too. Plus, we'll talk Penguins as well. We haven't even talked about Steelers and Chargers yet. We'll do that too. We'll take a break, and we'll get into all of it. See you in a minute.
The Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call is brought to you by Ireland Contracting, putting new roofs on Pittsburgh homes for over 25 years. Call Ireland Contracting at 1-800-NEW-ROOF.